The Civil War changed drastically from its beginning to its end. When the war began in 1861, people didn't think it would last long, and they had no idea of the huge endeavor into which it would transform. At first, the war was said to be about keeping the Union together, but it ultimately became a mission to emancipate the slaves. On February 4th, 1861, the United States officially split in two. It was on this day that the states that had seceded formed the Confederacy. Only 2 months later, on April 12th, the Civil War officially began with the Battle of Fort Sumter in South Carolina. The federal government, led by Abraham Lincoln, was opposed by the newly elected president of the Confederacy, Jefferson Davis. The two presidents had very different goals going into the war. The South's primary motivation was to leave the Union so they could continue their lifestyle with the use of slaves, and the North's motivation was to not free the slaves, but to simply keep the Union together. The federal government, however, was much stronger than the Confederate government from the very beginning. Because the Confederacy was newly formed and had little power. Also, the population of the South was far smaller than that of the North, having 9 million to the North's 21.5 million. Also, the North was much more financially stable than the South, having about 4 times its wealth. The Confederacy knew when they formed that they were at a disadvantage, so the government attempted to gain support from trade partner England, but ultimately failed with the Trent Affair in 1861. At the beginning of the war, Lincoln and the federal government did not believe he had the power to abolish slavery, but as the war went on, he realized that he did in fact have that authority. On January 1st, 1863, he issued the Emancipation Proclamation, freeing all slaves behind Confederate lines. This was not only a political move, but also a military and societal one. It gave the Union an end goal to the war, and stopped England from aiding the Confederacy because many British people were abolitionists. After the proclamation, Lincoln began using his power to the fullest, by next suspending habeas corpus in Maryland after dissenters became violent. He used his power further by making conscription mandatory in the Union, and the Confederacy followed suit in 1862. The draft laws angered many citizens, who rioted. This shows how government, military, and society were all intertwined during the Civil War.
The Civil War brought about dramatic social and economic changes in American society. It both positively and negatively affected the North and the South in many ways. The economy in the South was negatively affected from mainly food shortages. However, a positive outcome from the war was that many slaves sought freedom and put their lives on the line to fight. Women had a bigger role in society after the war. Although they did not earn as much money as the men, they replaced the men in both the cities and on the farm. In the North, it was a different story for the economy. The war had a positive effect on the economy. Many industries boomed, but wages did not keep up, which led the nation's first income tax. The population of American soldiers changed dramatically. It went from 0% of African American soldiers in the war to 10%. The Civil War positively and negatively changed the North and the South.
The Civil War began in 1861 with the Battle of Fort Sumter, resulting in a Union surrender. The next battles were Bull Run, Shiloh, and Antietam. During the Battle of Bull Run, Union and Confederate soldiers battled back and forth until Confederate reinforcements arrived and the Union was defeated. In 1862, Confederate soldiers surprised Union soldiers at the Battle of Shiloh, where Union soldiers forced the Confederate Army to retreat, teaching a valuable lesson to both sides. In the Battle of Antietam, Union General George McClellan and Confederate Commander Robert E. Lee sent their troops into the bloodiest single-day battle in the history of the United States. The Battle of Gettysburg could be considered a turning point in the war because it depleted the resources in the South so much that General Lee would never have enough troops to invade the Northern Territory. At Vicksburg and Port Hudson, the Union took control of the Mississippi River. Lincoln made his Gettysburg Address on the field where the battle was fought. It helped Americans realize that the United States needed to be united to be successful.